What's good, everyone? This is Monaro and welcome to my channel. Today we will go over chapters 47 to 51. Hope you enjoy. Ned is dreaming of walking through the crypts beneath Winterfell. The kings of winter watch him with eyes of ice, and the direwolves at their feet snarl. Finally, he comes to the tomb where his father sleeps with Lyanna and Brandon beside him. Lyanna's statue whispers, "Promise me, Ned," and her eyes weep blood. Ned jerks awake with someone pounding at his door. The king's steward tells Ned that King Robert demands his presence at once. When Ned reaches Maegor's holdfast, he finds the king's guard guarding the bridge, the steps, and the royal apartments. Ned only has to look at Sir Barristan Selmy, who is waiting outside the king's bedchamber, to know something is terribly wrong. Inside the bedchamber, he finds Robert in bed with Grand Maester Pycelle, Renly Baratheon, and Cersei Lannister gathered around him. The room smells of smoke, blood, and death. Tattered and blood-stained clothes litter the floor. Ned can see that his friend is dying. Renly explains that it was a boar, and Robert curses himself for drinking too much wine and missing his thrust. When Ned asks where the rest of them were, Renly explains that Robert had called everyone off to try to take the boar himself. Ned lifts the blanket and verifies that they have done what they can to close the rip from groin to nipple, but it is not nearly enough. The smell of death is horrible and overpowering. Robert declares that even he can smell it, but still takes pride in having killed the boar, which he wants served at his funeral feast. Robert then orders everyone but Ned to leave. Pycelle tries to give Robert the milk of the poppy before leaving, but Robert refuses. Once they are gone, Ned damns Robert for being so headstrong. Robert damns Ned right back, declaring that he killed the boar and should have done the same to Ned for not leaving him to hunt in peace. He then admits that Ned was right about Daenerys Targaryen and asserts the boar was sent by the gods to punish him. Robert then expresses gratitude and admiration that Ned was the only one to tell him that he was wrong. Robert tells Ned to write his final testament, in which he names Ned as Lord Regent and Protector of the Realm until his son comes of age. Ned cannot bring himself to tell Robert that Joffrey is not his son, so instead he clandestinely changes the words to "my heir," feeling soiled as he does so. Ned tells Robert that he cannot die because the realm needs him, but Robert replies that the realm knows what a wretched king he was, as bad as Aerys. Ned insists that Robert was not as bad as Aerys, and Robert declares that at least this one thing he did right. He has declared Ned as regent, and Ned will do it well. Robert signs the document and tells Ned that they are to serve the boar at his funeral feast. He then asks that Ned rescind the death warrant on Daenerys, and also to help his son be better than he has been. Before Ned leaves, the king mumbles that he ought to laugh at being killed by a pig, but it hurts too much. The queen has left, but the rest come back in. The king has Renly and Pycelle bear witness to his placing the seal on the letter. Then the king asks for and drinks the milk of the poppy. He fades off to sleep. He asks Ned if he will dream, and Ned assures him he will. Then Robert declares that he will give Ned's love to Lyanna. Last of all, Robert requests that Ned guard his children. Unable to tell the truth and unable to lie, all that Ned can think of is Robert's bastards when he tells him that he will. Pycelle tells Ned that he has done all that he can, but the wound has already mortified because it took 2 days to get Robert back. When Ned asks how long, he is told that by rights the king should be dead already. Renly adds that Robert was always strong, though perhaps not wise, recounting that Robert slew the boar even with his guts hanging out. Ned replies admiringly that Robert was never one to leave the battle with an enemy standing. Sir Barristan is still standing outside, and Ned tells him that the king is not to be disturbed. Sir Barristan laments that he has failed his sacred trust. Ned reassures the old knight that no one can defend a man against himself, and even the king blamed the wine. The knight admits that Robert was reeling drunk. Varys, who has just appeared, asks who gave Robert all the wine, and Sir Barristan tells him it was the king's elder squire, Lancel Lannister. Varys states that he hopes that the lad does not blame himself. Ned informs Varys that the king wants the assassination of Daenerys cancelled. Varys tells him that those birds have flown, but he will do what he can. Tomard and Cain are helping Ned across the bridge when Renly catches up and asks for a private word. Renly asks if Robert's will make him regent, and knowing his answer, tells Ned that he has 100 swords to offer him. Renly declares that if they strike now, they can take the Red Keep and seize the royal children. Ned refuses, stating that while Robert is still alive, he will not shed blood in the castle. Renly insists that every moment Ned delays gives Cersei more time to prepare. Ned declares that they should pray for Robert's recovery. Sometimes the gods are merciful. Renly answers that the Lannisters are not. By the time he returns to his tower, Ned is wondering if he should have accepted Renly's offer. If the queen fights, he will need every sword he can get. He has no taste for these intrigues. Ned first asks Cain to bring Littlefinger to him and then commands Tomard to take 20 men to escort his daughters to the ships to take them to Winterfell. He then tells Tomard to stop at Dragonstone on the way and deliver a letter to Lord Stannis, for his eyes only. After Tomard leaves, Ned sits in grief for his friend Robert and thinks how some will say that he had betrayed his king's friendship and disinherited his sons. He hopes the gods will know better and that Robert will learn the truth in the land beyond the grave. He then composes a letter to Stannis, telling him of Robert's death and offering him the throne as the rightful heir. As he seals the letter, Ned reflects that his regency will be short, and then he can return to Winterfell. Littlefinger arrives and congratulates Ned for being named Protector of the Realm. When asked how he knows, Littlefinger states that Varys told him and that Ned has just confirmed it. Ned damns Varys and his birds and states that he does not trust them. Littlefinger declares that Ned is learning. Ned says he knows the secret that Jon Arryn was murdered for. Littlefinger's lack of reaction to the truth shows that he obviously knew the secret all along. Ned declares his intention to offer the throne to Stannis, but Littlefinger says he would be wise to bow to Joffrey. Stannis is not a friend of Ned or Littlefinger. Even his brothers cannot stand him because he is hard and unyielding. Stannis will appoint his own hand and small council, and his ascension will mean war for the realm. Stannis will seek the heads of Cersei and the children to secure his position on the Iron Throne, an act that will incite Tywin Lannister and the houses sworn to Casterly Rock to an uprising. Those lords, Tyrell and Redwyne, as revenge for siege of Storm's End, and even Lord Balon Greyjoy for his rebellion. According to Littlefinger, anyone who stood by the Targaryens during Robert's rebellion or rose with the Greyjoys will have cause to fear Stannis' ascent to the throne. Littlefinger proposes another course of action, that Ned makes his peace with the Lannisters, wed Sansa to Joffrey, Robb to Myrcella, and Arya to Tommen, and rule as Hand of the King and Protector of the Realm until Joffrey comes of age in 4 years' time. This should be sufficient time to deal with Stannis, and should Joffrey prove unsuitable, they can reveal the truth of his parentage and place Renly on the throne. Ned declares that what Littlefinger is proposing is treason. Littlefinger replies that it will only be treason if they lose. Ned tells him that he forgets Jon Arryn, Jory Cassell, and the attempt to kill Bran. Littlefinger states that the only thing he forgot was that he was talking to a Stark. Ned declares that he is going to call on the aid Littlefinger promised Catelyn. Cersei has 12 knights and 100 men-at-arms, enough to overwhelm his household guard. Littlefinger then points out that there are lords that have no love for the Lannisters that have guards. Ned states they are not enough. He needs Littlefinger to secure him the city watch of King's Landing. Littlefinger insists that when the Hand proclaims one king and the queen another, the gold cloaks will side with the one who pays better. With that in mind, Littlefinger states that he will meet with the city watch commander, Janos Slynt, with a bribe of 6,000 gold dragons. Jon is eating breakfast when Sam excitedly tells that he has been passed out of training with Jon and the rest. Jon feigns surprise, and Sam explains that he will be working for Maester Aemon, who needs somebody who can read and write to work in the library and with the birds. Sam is concerned about getting to the sept in time, otherwise the officers may change their minds. When they arrive at the sept, the other recruits are genuinely shocked to see Sam, but no one dares to say a word. All the officers arrive together. Lord Commander Jorah Mormont makes his customary speech about taking vows and being a member of the Night's Watch. Mormont asks if any wish to leave before taking their vows, but no one does. Then Mormont asks if any of them follow the old gods, and Jon speaks up. The recruits whisper that there is no godswood at the wall. Mormont confirms that Castle Black has no need of a godswood since the haunted forest beyond the wall stands as it did in the Dawn Age, and there is a weirwood grove half a league from the castle. It is then that Sam speaks up that he also wants to swear his vows before the Heart Tree, despite being born into the Faith of the Seven. When Sir Jeremy Riker questions why Sam would forsake the gods of his house, Sam declares that the Night's Watch is his house now, and the Seven have never answered his prayers. At the end of the ceremony, the Lord Commander announces the assignments: Halder and Albert to the Builders, Gren, Pipar, Totter, and Maethar to the Rangers, Samwell, Darian, and Jon to the Stewards. Jon is flabbergasted and believes that there must be a mistake, but when he sees Sir Alistair Thorne's black eyes studying him, he knows it is an intentional snub. The Lord Commander pronounces his last words and leaves. The first call the recruits from each of the groups. After the rest are gone, Lord Steward Bowen Marsh states that Sam will work in the library and rookery with Maester Aemon since Chet has been reassigned to the kennels. Darian will be sent to Eastwatch to work with the merchants. Jon will be personal steward to the Lord Commander at Mormont's own request. Jon sarcastically suggests a number of menial duties for himself and is told certainly and given several more duties. When Jon asks if they take him for a servant, Maester Aemon answers that they took him for a man of the Night's Watch, though perhaps they were wrong. Outside in the yard, Jon rants about the unfairness of his appointment, since he is a better swordsman and rider. Darian is angered by Jon's tantrum since he himself was unfairly sent to the wall for a false accusation. Sam quiets Jon by telling him the Lord Commander probably intends to groom him for command. Sam explains that his father once insisted that he be at his side for all important events, but once he fell out of favor, his father no longer cared. Suddenly, Jon is ashamed. Sam has accepted his situation like a man, while he has been playing the boy. Jon admits that Sam is right and agrees to take his vows. Late that afternoon, they proceed through the cold tunnel under the wall and through 3 gates that Bowen Marsh must unlock. When they are finally outside again, Sam worries about the wildlings, but is told they have never come this close to the wall. Nevertheless, they are joined by an escort of rangers. Jon whistles and Ghost lops out of the tunnel and then into the woods. The haunted forest is much like the Wolfswood around Winterfell, but its feel is much more ominous. It is dusk when they finally arrive at a clearing with 9 weirwoods, a number unheard of south of the wall. Sam looks at the faces on each of the trees and says that he can feel the old gods watching. As night falls, Jon and Sam kneel and say their vows together. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. It shall not end until my death. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. I shall wear no crowns and win no glory. I shall live and die at my post. I am the sword in the darkness. I am the watcher on the walls. I am the fire that burns against the cold, the light that brings the dawn, and the horn that wakes the sleepers, the shield that guards the realms of men. I pledge my life and honor to the Night's Watch for this night and all nights to come. When they are finished, Bowen Marsh declares that they knelt as boys and now rise as men of the Night's Watch. The gnarled forester Dywin says they should be getting back because there is something in the night he dislikes. Then Ghost returns, his red eyes and white face eerily like the faces carved in the weirwoods. In his jaw is a human hand. Ned wakes to the thunder of Lannister guardsmen drilling in the yards and curses Cersei for not fleeing despite his warnings. At breakfast, Arya is given permission for a short lesson with Syrio Forel as long as she is ready to leave by midday. Sansa, who is very despondent, asks again to see Prince Joffrey before she leaves. Thrumugnyr offers to escort Sansa, but Ned insists it is not wise. Sansa complains it is not fair and runs weeping from the solar. Thrumugnyr rises to follow, but Ned stops her, declaring that he will try to explain when they return to Winterfell. An hour later, Grandmaster Pycelle arrives with news that King Robert is dead. Although he has been expecting the news, Ned is surprised by the emptiness it leaves inside him, as if part of him has died as well. Suppressing his grief, Ned orders Pycelle to convene the small council in the Tower of the Hand, not trusting the security of the council chamber. The Grand Maester objects that they can wait a day, but Ned insists, so Pycelle dispatches service to carry the summons. Sir Barristan Selmy arrives first and asks permission to attend King Joffrey instead, but Ned refuses. When Littlefinger arrives wearing the same clothes as the previous day, he declares that the task Ned set him is done. Varys arrives next with news that Lord Renly has left the city along with Sir Loras Tyrell and 50 retainers, slipping out a postern gate an hour before dawn and riding south for Storm's End or Highgarden. Ned is discomforted by the news, since he had remained hopeful of Renly's support. Ned entrusts Sir Barristan to read the writ naming him Protector of the Realm until the heir comes of age. Ned thinks to himself that the true heir is already of age, but says nothing. He does not trust Varys or Pycelle, and Sir Barristan is honor-bound to protect the boy he thinks is his rightful king. The need for deceit bothers him, but Ned knows that he must keep Cersei's secret until he is firmly established as regent. There will be plenty of time to deal with the succession when his daughters are safe and Stannis has arrived with his forces. Ned asks the council to proclaim him Protector of the Realm as Robert wished. Before anyone can reply, the meeting is interrupted by Fat Tom and the royal steward with news that the king demands the small council's immediate presence in the throne room. Ned is surprised that Cersei would strike quickly and orders Tom to assemble an escort. Escorted by 8 men-at-arms and supported by Littlefinger, Ned makes his way across the yard, reassured by the number of Stark guardsmen on the walls. Inside the throne room, Joffrey sits the Iron Throne with Cersei and his siblings below, guarded by Sandor Clegane and all of the King's Guard except Jaime Lannister and Sir Barristan, who has just arrived with Ned. Behind the throne stand 20 Lannister guardsmen armed with swords, and along the walls are 100 gold cloaks armed with spears, enough to outnumber the Lannisters 5-1. At the sight of the gold cloaks, Ned is encouraged that Littlefinger has kept his promise. Joffrey stands and commands that the council make arrangements for his coronation, which he wishes held within the fortnight. The young king then declares that today he will accept oaths of fealty from his loyal counselors. Ned has Varys deliver Robert's will to Cersei. The queen glances at the words, then tears it up, questioning if Ned meant a piece of paper to be his shield. The Honorable Sir Barristan exclaims that those were the king's words, but Cersei dismissively declares that they have a new king now. Then Cersei advises Ned that if he bends the knee and swears fealty to Joffrey, he will be allowed to retire peacefully to Winterfell. Instead, bound by his honor, Ned declares that Joffrey has no right to the throne and that Stannis is the true heir. Joffrey bursts out in anger and Cersei orders Sir Barristan to seize Ned as a traitor. The old knight hesitates and is quickly surrounded by Ned's guardsmen. At Cersei's command, the Hound and the Lannister guardsmen draw their swords to aid in the arrest. Ned responds by ordering Janos Slynt to have his gold cloaks take the queen and her children into custody. As Ned is stating he wants no bloodshed, a gold cloak shoves a spear through Tomard's back. A brief fight ensues, quickly killing all of Ned's guardsmen. As Ned's men die around him, Littlefinger slides Ned's dagger from its sheath, holds it to its throat, and says, "I did warn you not to trust me, you know." Arya is training with Syrio Forel in the small hall before they are due to board the ship for Winterfell. Syrio calls his strike and Arya blocks each in turn until one hits her breast from the wrong side and Syrio says she is dead. Arya complains that Syrio cheated by lying. The swordsman says only his words lied, not his eyes nor his arm, but she was not seeing. Arya insists that she watched him every second, but Syrio declares that watching is not seeing. To illustrate his point, Syrio tells her how he became the first sword of Bravos. Syrio explains that there were many who were stronger, faster, and younger, but he was the best because he could see the truth. After the death of the previous first sword, many Bravos were called to the Sea Lord, and as many were sent away. Finally, Syrio was called before the Sea Lord, who had a fat yellow cat on his lap. The Sea Lord said the animal had been brought to him from a faraway land by one of his captains and asked if Syrio had ever seen her like. Syrio replied that he had seen 1,000 like him in the alleys of Bravos, and that same day Syrio was named the first sword. Arya says she does not understand. Syrio explains that the cat was just an ordinary one, but the other men all expected a marvelous beast, so that was what they saw. In addition, the Sea Lord had called it her, and that was what the others saw, even though it was clearly a tomcat. Arya understands then, and Syrio tells her to use her senses first and her mind second. Then he declares that when they get to Winterfell, it will be time to put Needle in her hand. The great wooden doors fly open to reveal 5 Lannister guardsmen and Sir Meryn Trant of the Kingsguard. Sir Meryn orders Arya to come with him to see her father. Arya is about to follow when Syrio stops her and asks why Lord Eddard would send Lannister men instead of his own. Arya immediately realizes the truth of Syrio's statement and picks up her stick sword. When Sir Meryn says he is trustworthy as a member of the Kingsguard, Arya replies that so is the Kingslayer. Dispensing with the charade, Meryn orders Arya seized. When a guard approaches Arya, Syrio stands before her. The guard orders Syrio out of the way, calling him an old man. Syrio declares his name and that they will be speaking to him with more respect. Unimpressed, the guard goes for his sword, but Syrio is faster and breaks the man's fingers with his wooden sword. Then Sir Meryn orders the Lannister guards to attack, and Syrio instructs Arya to go to her father. As the guards attack Syrio, Arya can see that Syrio was only toying with her during their practices. By the time Arya reaches the far end of the hall, Syrio is surrounded by 5 dead or dying men. Then Sir Meryn, in his heavy plate armor, draws his sword. Syrio tells Arya to go, but she watches as the first sword lands many blows on the knight's armor before Sir Meryn breaks Syrio's wooden sword. Arya turns and runs through the kitchen, crying. As she runs, Arya thinks of everything Syrio has told her. Swift as a deer, quiet as a shadow, quick as a snake, calm as still water. Fear cuts deeper than swords. Strong as a bear, fierce as a wolverine. Fear cuts deeper than swords. The man who fears losing has already lost. Fear cuts deeper than swords. Her sword grip is slick with sweat when she reaches the turret stair. She wonders if she should go up or down. She then remembers Syrio telling her to do the unexpected, so she goes down to a cavernous cellar that she knows is a dead end. She climbs up to a window. Outside the window, she can see the stout door to the Tower of the Hand is splintered. One of her father's guards lies dead on the stairs, and she can hear fighting. She thinks about when she heard a man say that if one hand can die, so can another. As she moves, Arya pretends that she is catching cats, but then realizes that she is the cat and is dead if they catch her. Outside the stable, she finds Hullen lying on the ground, looking dead. When she approaches him, he opens his eyes and tells her to warn her father before dying. Inside, Arya finds more dead men, including Desmond, who said he would protect her father. There is only a single Lannister body, and Arya remembers Desmond claimed that every Northman was worth 10 Southerns. Losing her temper, Arya kicks Desmond's body and calls him a liar. As Arya collects the horse tack, she finds her broken chest on the ground. She gropes around for Needle. Just as her fingers touch the sword, a stable boy appears behind her with a pitchfork. She asks him to help her saddle a horse, saying her father will reward him. The boy responds that her father is dead and that the queen will reward him. When he grabs her arm, Arya forgets all of Syrio's lessons, only remembering the lesson that Jon Snow taught her. She sticks the pointy end through the boy's belly, killing him. As she saddles her mare, Arya realizes that the gates will be closed and the guards will let no one out. She has to go another way. Immediately, she wonders if she can find the room with the monsters again. However, to do that, she must cross the open yard, and the walls are crowded with more gold cloaks and soldiers than she has ever seen. Reciting Syrio's words to herself, she walks slowly across the yard to the empty royal sept, hiding Needle under the cloak she has put on. It is the scariest thing she has ever done. Taking 2 of the candles in the sept, she crawls out of a back window. It takes Arya more than an hour to find the room, crawling through windows, over walls, and through cellars. She goes back to light her candle and returns. Now the monsters do not frighten her, neither do the rats in the dungeons. The crypts of Winterfell were scarier, and she and her siblings were once taken there by Robb to visit their own waiting tombs. Then Jon had suddenly appeared covered in flour, pretending to be a ghost, but that had not scared her. The memory of her safe home at Winterfell makes Arya smile as she plunges deeper into the darkness of the tunnel. Sansa is locked in a room with Jane Poole, who does nothing but cry for her father. Sansa, thinking Jane was acting childish, has told her friend that she would ask Queen Cersei to let her see her father, but it does not seem to have helped. Sansa herself wept the first day. She was used to the sound of fighting in Winterfell, but knowing it was real, with angry shouts and the moans of dying men, was different. At first, she pleaded for news and to see someone familiar, such as her father or her gallant prince, but got no answer. Then they shoved Jane into the room, and she claimed they were killing everyone and that there were bodies on the steps. The next day, the fighting was over, and Lannister guardsmen patrolled the walls. The servants who bring them food and clothes refused to answer any questions. At sunset, they heard the bells tolling from the great sept of Baelor, proclaiming King Robert's death. Sansa is afraid for her beautiful prince and her father, and at night she dreams of Joffrey on the throne with her beside him, with everyone she knows coming before them to bend their knee. Sir Boros Blount comes for her the 3rd day. Resolved to be a lady no matter what, Sansa compliments the ugly knight. He leads her out of Maegor's holdfast, where she sees a body impaled on the spikes of the dry moat. Rather than being taken to the queen's apartments, Sansa is brought to the council chamber and presented to Queen Cersei and the small council, though her prince is not there as she was hoping. The queen asks if she has been well taken care of, and Sansa affirms that they have, though no one will tell them what happened. Sansa's use of the word us leads to confusion until Sansa explains that Jane is staying with her. Cersei is surprised to discover that Jane has been put in with Sansa, and expresses concern about what absurd tales Jane might have told Sansa. Remembering her promise, Sansa asks about Vayon Poole, unable to imagine anyone killing a steward who does not even carry a sword. Cersei asks what to do with Jane, and Littlefinger states that he will find a place for her. The queen then instructs that Jane be taken to Littlefinger's apartments, and saying Littlefinger will take her to her father should calm her down. Sansa asks where Vayon Poole is and where Jane is being sent, wondering why Littlefinger must be involved, but Cersei brushes off the question. Cersei tells Sansa that Joffrey loves her, but that her father is a traitor. Varys and Pycelle explains that Lord Eddard, who had sworn to protect King Robert's children, was planning to turn the kingdom over to Stannis Baratheon. Then Cersei shows Sansa the letter her father wrote to Stannis, which had been taken off the captain of his guards. Sansa insists that it cannot be true because her father was the king's friend. Cersei informs Sansa that she cannot allow the daughter of a traitor to marry her son. Sansa is overwhelmed by the unfairness of taking away her beloved because of something her father did. Cersei states that she knew Sansa was innocent from the moment Sansa came to her with Lord Eddard's plan to take her away. Sansa insists that she did this because she loves Joffrey, remembering that she felt very wicked sneaking away to the queen. She had wanted to go to the king, but loud and often drunk King Robert had always frightened her. She had also believed the king would probably have just sent her back to her father. After having informed the queen of her father's plan, Sansa was locked in the high room in Maegor's holdfast under guard. A few hours later, the fighting had started. The small council discusses whether Sansa could also turn out to be traitorous. Varys and Grandmaster Pycelle opine that the child of a traitor is also likely to become traitorous. Littlefinger points out that Sansa reminds him of her mother rather than her father. Queen Cersei expresses doubt that Sansa can be trusted since her sister turned her wolf on Joffrey. Sansa replies that she is nothing like her treacherous sister. She only wants to be Joffrey's wife. Queen Cersei then suggests that if the rest of Sansa's kin prove loyal, it would rest some of the council's fears. Therefore, Cersei asks that Sansa write to her lady mother and her brother Robb, explaining how Lord Eddard betrayed his king. Sansa does not know what to say, but Cersei assures her that they will provide her with the words. The important thing is that the Starks keep the king's peace, otherwise it will go hard on them and on Sansa. Sansa is also told to write that she is being well cared for and that her family must come to King's Landing and pledge fealty to Joffrey. Sansa asks to see her father, but is told that if she is truly loyal, she should not want to see him. Sansa says she is concerned about him and what will happen to him. She is told that her father is well and that the king will decide his punishment. Sansa realizes that the king is now her gallant Joffrey, whom she knows would never hurt her father and who is sure to listen to her pleas. Perhaps her father will only be exiled for a few years. However, if her mother or Robb did something treasonous, it will all go wrong. Sansa agrees to write the letters and ends up writing 4 to her mother, her brother Robb, her aunt Lysa, and her grandfather Hosta Tully. When she returns to her room, Jane and her belongings are already gone. It is only when she is drifting off to sleep that night that Sansa realizes she has forgotten to ask about Arya. Well, that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. I will be doing a Q&A at the end of the month for the entire book, so please leave your questions down below so that I can compile them if you want them answered. Again, thank you so much for stopping by. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and please subscribe to come back for more. Thanks again. Bye.